you wouldn't recognize her today. It is not just because the years have passed, but because of the silent weight of everything she has survived. For decades, Jennifer Aniston was more than a star. She was a symbol, a promise etched into the collective memory as Rachel Green. She was America's sweetheart, the radiant, beating heart of an entire generation. But we are only now beginning to understand the truth, that every perfect smile concealed a crack, and every graceful step was taken on the shattered glass of private pain. Behind the golden glow of a Hollywood lineage and the glittering spotlight of global fame lies a woman bearing wounds that time could never fully heal. Her life has been shaped by a childhood fractured by abandonment and criticism, by love stories that crumbled under the world's unforgiving gaze, and by a silent, soul-tearing battle to become a mother that ended in despair. Now, at 56, the storm of her past still clings to her. It is a cold, consuming ache that threatens the very peace she has spent a lifetime clawing back for herself. Her story was never just about a girl on a sitcom who got the guy. It's about the woman who lost the guy, lost the dream, and was forced to find herself when the whole world was watching, waiting for her to break. So, what is the true cost of being America's sweetheart? And who is the woman left standing when the applause finally fades? Behind every golden surname lies a story far less glamorous. For Jennifer Joanna Aniston, born into Hollywood royalty, the glitter of her lineage could never mask the cracks in its fragile foundation. Her father, John Aniston, was a commanding Greek-born actor, and her mother, Nancy Dow, an American actress. But the world of fame that surrounded her never truly filled the quiet, empty spaces at home. When she was just 9 years old, that world fractured. Her father walked out, leaving a silence that she would later say was the hardest part. That heartbreaking quiet taught her a lesson far too young. It taught her that love could simply disappear without warning. The battle at home continued with her mother, a woman known for her striking beauty, who held Jennifer to rigid, unforgiving standards. Comments about her weight, her posture, or her hair were constant. They were tiny shards of criticism that planted deep seeds of self-doubt that would take decades to unearth. Jennifer learned early to entertain, to make people laugh, not just as a gift, but as a shield. If people were laughing, she once reasoned, maybe they wouldn't see the cracks in her life. This fragile spark of performance became her refuge. She found a sanctuary in drama at the Waldorf School, and later honed her craft at the prestigious LaGuardia High School of Music and Art. There, she learned that true acting wasn't about pretending. It was about standing unguarded and letting the world see your soul. Graduating did not usher in the dream, it ushered in the grind. In her late teens and early 20s, Jennifer survived on odd jobs. She sold timeshares in dimly lit offices, served meals to customers who barely met her eyes, and peddled deliveries through Manhattan on a rattling bicycle. Each shift just bought her enough time for one more audition, one more fragile hope. A series of television roles flickered and then died. Shows like Molloy, Ferris Bueller, and Muddling Through were lit for a moment, then snuffed out before they could warm her career. By 1994, at just 25, she was emotionally threadbare, confessing later, "I kept thinking, maybe this isn't for me." Then, fate arrived in the most unremarkable disguise. One afternoon at a Los Angeles gas station, she crossed paths with Warren Littlefield, the president of NBC Entertainment. The conversation was brief, but he saw something in her weary eyes. "You have something," he told her. "Don't quit." To Jennifer, those words felt like sunlight after years of overcast skies. The sitcom he urged her to audition for was called Friends. She walked into that audition room and straight into destiny. She had read for the part of Monica, but the producers saw an alchemy of humor and fragility they could not ignore. And so, Rachel Green became hers. as if the role had been waiting for her all along. For the next 10 years, Friends did not just own Thursday nights. It became a cultural heartbeat pulsing across the globe. The Ross and Rachel saga was the love story of a generation, and Jennifer became its face. Her haircut was a global phenomenon. Her life was an open page. The lines between Jennifer the person and Rachel the character blurred, until even she felt the weight of the persona pressing into her own skin. It was a gift beyond measure, but it was also a gilded cage. As her fame exploded, her personal life seemed to complete the fairy tale. In 1998, she was set up on a blind date with the one man on earth as famous as she was, Brad Pitt. He was cinema's golden boy, and their connection was instant and easy. The world anointed them Hollywood's golden couple. They were a walking emblem of romance, proof that something genuine could exist in the chaos of fame. Their wedding in 2000 was a fortress of privacy and joy, a Malibu dream under a sky of fireworks. She had found her best friend, her partner. For a time, her life reached a perfect symmetry. She was at the absolute peak of her career, adored by millions, and married to the most desired man in the world. The little girl who learned to survive in a world where affection was uncertain had finally found a safe place to belong. For a time, it felt unbreakable. Every fairy tale has an ending. Jennifer Aniston never imagined hers would be rewritten so publicly, so brutally. In 2000, she stood under a sky of Malibu fireworks, believing she was stepping into forever. 5 years later, she found herself staring into a very different kind of light. It was the relentless, unforgiving flash of paparazzi bulbs. The first cracks in the golden couple's life had been hairline, almost invisible. They were hidden beneath the veneer of two intertwined careers, between red carpet smiles and shared victories. The relentless schedules that once felt like a sign of ambition now became an unspoken wedge. Weeks blurred into months spent oceans apart, each consumed by film sets and press tours. Intimacy became a rare guest. She would later reflect that they were like ships passing in the night, waving from distant harbors they could no longer reach. By early 2005, the whispers grew teeth. At first, it was background noise in the hum of celebrity gossip. Then it swelled into a roar that followed her everywhere. The storm finally broke with headlines, suggesting that Brad's on-screen chemistry with Angelina Jolie had crossed into reality. Jennifer was no longer living her life. She was trapped inside a narrative she had not written, replayed on every television screen, and splashed across every glossy cover until it seeped into the very walls of her home. The announcement of their separation in January 2005 landed like a detonation. For her, it was the public dismantling of the life she had imagined growing old inside. Paparazzi camped outside her home. Their camera shutters clicked like a mechanical heartbeat, hunting for any evidence of her collapse. Simple errands became a gauntlet of scrutiny. It was, she later said, unbelievably painful. Then came the cruelest wound of all. A rumor began to circulate that the marriage failed because she hadn't wanted children, that her own ambition had poisoned their love. For a woman whose body and choices had been dissected for years, this accusation cut deeper than any other. It was an assault on her womanhood. "I do and I will," she said sharply in an interview, a flash of fire betraying the deep hurt beneath. But the narrative was set, and it would follow her for more than a decade. The nights were the hardest. The house was so quiet the silence seemed to press in on the walls. She leaned heavily on therapy as a lifeline and used yoga to anchor herself to the present. Her closest friends became her shield. The end of her marriage did not bring an end to the story. The echo of 2005 reverberated for years, amplified by a world that refused to let her go. Almost overnight, the image of Brad and Jen was replaced by a fevered fascination with Brangelina. Their growing family and humanitarian trips became a global spectacle. Every time a new photo of their picture-perfect brood appeared, Jennifer's name was dragged back into a spotlight she never asked for. The comparisons were relentless. The juxtaposition's cruel. Tabloids turned her body into a battleground, constantly asking why she was still childless. The heartbreak of losing her marriage was a wound. This was salt ground into it, again and again, by strangers. The woman who emerged from that crucible was not the same one who had walked down the Malibu aisle. She was sharper, more guarded, but also more certain of who she was without anyone else's shadow. The pain did not break her. She turned it into her craft, delivering performances so layered they felt like open wounds on screen. She had been through a public autopsy of love under the harshest lights imaginable. And from the ruins of one of the most scrutinized breakups of her generation, she carried away something more enduring than the fairy tale. She had found the quiet, unshakable strength to begin again. The woman who walked out of the fire was not looking to rebuild a fairy tale. She was learning to build a fortress. For years, she moved through the world with her heart half-guarded. She found love again, first with the restless energy of musician John Mayer, a spark that burned brightly and then quickly faded, leaving the quiet sting of betrayal. A few years later, she found a different kind of promise with actor Justin Theroux. His thoughtful, steady warmth felt like solid ground. They married in 2015, in the backyard of her home, a quiet attempt at a second chance at forever. But even the steadiest ground can shift. 2 years later, they announced their separation. This time, there was no tabloid storm, no public spectacle. There was only the private devastation of realizing that love, even when deep, is not always enough. 3 great loves, 3 goodbyes. Each had left its own scar, each teaching her that love can end not just in a blaze of public scrutiny, but also in the quiet, slow unraveling of 2 people who simply drift apart. In the spaces between heartbreak, her work became both a refuge and a proving ground. She chose roles that defied the America's sweetheart box she had been put in. In the 2014 film Cake, she stripped away all glamour, her face raw and unadorned, channeling pain into an acclaimed performance. Then, in 2019, she returned to television with The Morning Show. Wearing the crown of both star and executive producer, she poured decades of her own resilience into a story about power, survival, and betrayal in a cutthroat industry. It was not a comeback. It was a reclamation. The greatest reclamation, however, happened away from any film set. For years, she had silently endured the world's narrative about her body, her choices, her supposed failure to become a mother. In 2016, she took back the pen. In a searing essay, she wrote with unflinching clarity, "We are complete with or without a mate, with or without a child." It was a declaration of sovereignty, but the full, heartbreaking truth would not come out until years later. In 2022, she finally revealed the secret battle she had waged for years. She spoke of the sterile chill of fertility clinics, the endless rounds of IVF, her body bruised from needles as she threw everything at the hope of having a child. She admitted her regret that no one had told her to freeze her eggs. The ship, she said, had sailed. The world had spent 2 decades speculating about her womb, painting her as either selfish or tragic. The reality was a private, lonely war that she lost. Today, Jennifer Aniston lives a life she has built on her own terms. Her Bel Air mansion is her sanctuary, a fortress of glass, stone, and memories. Her days are defined not by red carpets, but by the grounding discipline of yoga, the company of her beloved dogs, and a tight circle of fiercely loyal friends. She is a powerhouse producer and a sharp businesswoman with a net worth in the hundreds of millions. Yet she is, by her own admission, happiest at home. The peace she now possesses was hard-won. It is not dependent on a partner or the fulfillment of a life script that was written for her by others. She is no longer the woman left behind. She is the woman who stood back up, scarred but whole, and found she could save herself. The tragedy of Jennifer Aniston is not what you think it is. It is not found in the empty half of a marital bed or in a nursery that was never filled. The true tragedy was the story the world wrote for her, a relentless narrative of the woman left behind, the failed wife, the childless queen. For decades, her life was used as a public scoreboard for judging a woman's worth. Her journey became a cautionary tale. But if you look closer, her life is not a cautionary tale at all. It is a quiet, powerful story of rebellion. So, has she aged well? Artistically, she has aged into a powerhouse. The pain that could have ended her career instead deepened it. She transformed the raw material of her own heartbreak into performances of stunning depth and vulnerability. The easy charm of Rachel Green gave way to the raw agony in Cake and the fierce resilience in The Morning Show. She is a far more interesting, more vital artist today than she was at the height of her initial fame, because her work is now etched with the truth of her own survival. Emotionally, she has achieved something far more valuable than a fairy tale ending. She has found sovereignty. The young star was defined by her relationships, her image, and the public's adoration. The woman she is now is defined by her own sense of peace. Her willingness to speak openly about her IVF battle was not a cry for pity. It was a radical act of self-acceptance. She took the world's cruelest narrative about her and reclaimed it with the quiet, unshakable power of her own truth. This is why she is more herself now than ever before. The America's Sweetheart of the 92nd was a beautiful, brilliant projection, but a projection nonetheless. It was a character she played on screen and was forced to maintain off-screen. The woman who stands today, who finds solace in her home, purpose in her work, and strength in her friendships, is not a different person. She is the real person, finally unearthed from beneath the weight of global expectation. Her journey holds up a mirror to the ugliest parts of our culture. It reveals the brutal machinery of fame that feeds on female pain and the relentless misogynistic pressure to validate a woman's life through marriage and motherhood. Jennifer Aniston was the ultimate test case, and her survival is an indictment of the system that tried to break her. Her story redefines resilience. It shows us that resilience is not about being unbreakable. It is about the quiet, unglamorous, day-by-day work of stitching yourself back together when no one is watching. Her life asks us a profound question. What does it truly mean to have it all? Is it the picture-perfect family and the public adoration? Or is it the hard-won peace that comes from accepting the life you have, not the one you were told you should want? In the quiet rooms of her Bel Air home, where the California sun spills across the floor, the echoes of a life lived under a microscope have finally grown soft. The roar of the crowd, the relentless click of cameras, the shouted questions on every street corner have faded. What is left is a silence that is no longer heartbreaking. It is a silence she has earned, one she has built for herself, brick by emotional brick. The shadows of old wounds may still live there quietly in the corners, but they do so in a space she commands, in a sanctuary built on her own terms. Time may change the face, the fame, and the fortune. Somewhere in the film reels of our memories, she remains untouched, the girl with the perfect hair, running into a coffee shop in a wedding dress, forever young, forever on the verge of a great love story. We will always have Rachel, but the gift Jennifer Aniston gave us in the end was something far more profound. She let us see the woman who had to survive the myth. She showed us what it looks like to be publicly broken and to privately heal. Her life is not a story of what she lost. It is a story of what she chose to build from the pieces. She has loved and been left, trusted and been betrayed, dreamed and been denied. Through it all, she faced the glare of the world in her most vulnerable moments and still found the courage to walk forward. The absence of children did not make her life empty. It made her strength visible in other, quieter ways. At 56, she stands as a woman who has turned heartbreak into art, pressure into purpose, and solitude into self-mastery. Hers is a reminder that even when the life you planned slips away, the life you create can be just as beautiful. Sometimes it is even more so, because it is yours alone. The fairy tale, she has learned, is not being rescued. The fairy tale is being able to choose your own ending, and then having the strength to live inside of it, peacefully and completely on your own.